Hey guys, wInevitable here with another hero guide. I was watching some Kings of the Storm this weekend, and I thought, well, how about some Sergeant Hammer? We had, you see him every so often in some tournaments. A specialist, ranged specialist from StarCraft 2 universe here. And there she's actually talking. Sorry, I heard that humming. If you hear it, it's actually Hammer talking there. That threw me off for a second. These characters do talk to you in the menu screens if you sit around for too long. But yeah, so... Hammer, Sergeant Hammer, the ranged specialist. That's right. Let's go ahead and go over some of the basic stats. We'll get into try mode, show her off, and then get into an actual game. A lot of fun, and the way we're gonna play her is kind of like a ranged assassin, in that, but a very unique ranged assassin in that you have one of the highest health of any assassin, and you'll also have one of the most damages. Not quite the highest. You're a little bit behind Zeratul on the auto attack damage, but it's an extreme amount of damage, and you have Resurgence of the Storm available. So Hammer, don't underestimate a good Hammer. Quite a valid choice and a very good hero to play if you're looking for something a little different. So yeah, the hit points, as I said, it's 770 for Hammer. Now the only assassins at level 1 that have more are Kerrigan and Zeratul at 820, 830 on those. So just about mid-tier, like middle of the hero pool as far as health goes at level 1 with 770, but she gets 170 hit points per level, so it scales quite well, really well. And you're going to end up with 4,000 hit points at level 20, which bumps you up, excuse me, it bumps you up quite a few slots there and will actually put you ahead of any other assassin in the game. Kerrigan, of course, having 3,680, so you're going to have 320 hit points more than her at level 20. Very, very, like I said, high health pool for the amount of damage that you're capable of putting out. And then compared to the specialists, the only specialist with more hit points is Azmodan, who has, of course, 6,000, the tankiest of the specialists. Hammer ties for second place with Gazlo at 4,000. And then, of course, looking at the damage, let's talk about that a bit. We'll go with the level 1 damage on Hammer is going to be 44, and that sits her behind 7 other heroes. Chen, of course, having 50, all the way down to Hammer at 8th on the hero list here at level 1, 44 damage. But she gets 13 per level. That is tied for the most with Zeratul. That's the most per level on auto attacks. So at level 20, she's going to have 291 per auto attack. Just basic run-of-the-mill auto attack. Zeratul at 294 has that 3 damage lead, but they're both right there at the top of the damage chart. And remember, Zeratul doesn't have Resurgence, as we're going to see here. So, Hammer, don't underestimate Hammer. You're also going to have more hit points. You're going to have 615 more hit points than Zeratul at level 20. So it's not a tank in the sense of a warrior, but she's definitely a tank, and she definitely puts out some pain. Let's talk about her abilities. We talked about the nuts and bolts, the hit points, and the damage. Her basic abilities, she's got 3 of them, of course. Q is Spider Mines. These, you kind of place these on the map. They're stationary, and then when just like in StarCraft, when another hero or minion comes nearby, they will activate, chase them, and then blow up. They have a mana cost of 50 for 3 mines complete in the set and a cooldown of 14 seconds. They do 58 damage at level 1. It's 8 per level. So at level 20, you're going to be able to do 210 damage per mine. And then, of course, a slow is in there of 25 seconds for 1.5 seconds. And the mines themselves last for 35 seconds. So they don't last forever. They don't last as long as the toxic nests of Abathur, which last for 90 seconds. So about just over a third of the time there on these mines. They are short term, but you can set these up in great positions to kind of zone out the enemy heroes. The W is a knockback, plus a kind of cone of fire ability called Concussive Blast. A little bit more mana at 75. The cooldown's a little bit shorter though at 12 seconds, and this is just one of the ways you can peel. You can peel with your Q and for your W. And for those of you who don't know, a peel is kind of when somebody dives you, say an Illidan, and he gets in there and he jumps into you. And he's all over you, in your face, melee attacking you, trying to kill you. A peel is kind of like a knock, you can knock them back, you can throw them away, some kind of ability of that nature. And so with the W, with the Concussive Blast, you can knock people away from you. It's great for escaping, it's great for saving even your life or a teammate's life, as well as doing some damage. It's 50 damage, at 63 at level 1, so it's 13 per level, and you'll get 310 damage with it at level 20. Not an insane amount, a little bit more than your auto attacks, not much, and it's more about the zoning, the peel, the knockback of that blast, and you kind of want to save these for when somebody is up in your face. Then you have Siege Mode, which is a triggered ability. This is a mode you enter into. It's a 40 mana cost of 40, so it's pretty cheap, and it's a cooldown of 5 seconds, which means you can cast it, you go into Siege Mode, and then after 5 seconds you can come back out. And then of course when you leave Siege Mode, there's then the 5-second delay before you can go back in. Now, while you're in Siege Mode, you are immobile. You cannot move, of course, just like in StarCraft, and it will increase your range as also just like StarCraft, and you get a splash damage bonus. You have 90% extra range, so it almost doubles your range, and then you have 25% on the splash. So if you're doing, say 300, just rounding up at level 20, your splash is going to be a quarter of that, which is 75 on the splash. And you also get a bonus damage to minions and structures, not to heroes. Remember that, not to heroes, but to minions and structures. So it's an extra 30% there. Again, if you're doing 300 damage, then you'd get 30 extra damage, and it can be very useful for clearing waves, for attacking structures, any kind of time you need that range. But we're not going to rely on Siege Mode with this build. Then you have Artillery, which is the trait. Basically, you deal more damage, an extra 20% to enemies that are far away, basically towards the end of your range. Your range at level 1 is 5.5. We're going to upgrade that to 6.5 at level 4. And so, at that point, about enemies that are basically between 4 and 5 range away. I guess 4 at level 1 and then 5 range away. We'll show that off in try mode here just to show you the difference in damages. Now there's 2 heroics. You have Blunt Force Gun, which is the high mana cost, high cooldown of 100 mana, 70-second cooldown. This fires a rocket with unlimited range that just goes across the entire map. It traverses the entire map, revealing along its path as it goes, and it deals a basic, a set amount of damage on impact as it passes through its targets. So it can damage multiple targets, and it can damage structures. It's got 220 damage, 249 damage at level 1. That's the base damage at level 1. But when you get this, of course you're going to be level 10, so you'll have 510 damage with it. And at level 20, you're going to be able to do 800 damage with one of these. And of course, that's you can catch multiple people with it. You could use this potentially. A lot of times, what you'll see this is there's a level 20 upgrade for Blunt Force, where it will then keep shooting once you've cast it until you cast it again. It's called Orbital BFG on level 20, and it continues to fire. Not immediately. It's not like a shot after shot after shot. It's kind of, it traverses the map once. There's a short delay, and then it traverses the map again in the same path. And what you can do is you can use this to whittle down enemy keeps and forts. You can also keep these shields down on the enemy core. So for a late game, long term, term strategy, the BFG is kind of viable. It's a little bit hard to pull off. It's not the go-to, which is going to be the other heroic, the Napalm Strike, a very short cooldown of 6 seconds and a mana cost of 35. I believe it's the shortest cooldown on any heroic. Basically, you lob a special shell, a Napalm Strike, and it's got great range on it. It's a long-range volley, and it deals damage in a small circle, kind of like the Arcane Flare on the Brightwing or the Blizzard on Jaina, and it also does damage over time. So you get an initial impact damage of 56 at level 1, and then you'll get a burn of 34 damage each second that you stand in that radius over 4 seconds. So that's 34 at level 1. You're talking 136, I believe. Just doing the math quickly there. That's level 1. So they scale up, and you're going to get a little bit more at level 20. You'll be doing like 360 basic damage and then 110 per second over 4 seconds. So if the enemy's caught in the radius for the full duration, you'll have 440 damage there plus the 360, which is going to give you 800. So that is comparable. If they stand in it, as I said, for the full duration, it's comparable to a BFG. And then you also get these every 6 seconds. So you can cast a ton of these. And that's, I think, why it's the go-to. The BFG is just, it's a long cooldown, and then it's a fixed path. As I said, it's very good for keeping the shields down, but it's not, I don't feel it's as useful as Napalm Strike in most situations. You've got the skins here, you've got the different tints. They just added the little hammer on top. She does come out of the tank when you're dancing and when you're in siege mode. You've got the master skin. Now it's pretty close contrasting it with the normal skin, there's a little bit of differences, and the other difference here are in the tints. You've got a blue and a white on the regular skin, and then you've got a blue which has the green on it, you can see, and then of course the black with the red. And this is the most common one I've seen when people run the master skin, this tint, and that's a big dead giveaway that they're running a master skin. You've also got the World War III Sergeant Hammer, pretty cool. She's got this machine gun up there with a bunch of different styles, really cool. And I love that they just added in the Jaina patch the hammer here, really awesome. So the talents, we're gonna build this for more of like an assassin style, not focusing on siege mode at all, just kind of dishing out the pain. And so there's a lot of good talents. Sometimes you'll see things that do buff the siege damage out, but with this, let's just run through the build first. We're gonna go with advanced artillery on level 1. This increases the damage bonus. So instead of 20% extra damage to long range enemies, you're gonna get 30%. That extra 10% adds up. Just make sure you're really using this and keeping enemies at range when you're attacking to get the most out of advanced artillery. Other things you can do, you can increase the damage of the Concussive Blast by 50%. You can reduce duration of silences, stuns, slows, and roots when you're in siege mode. This is more of like a siege build. And the one I see commonly is ambush. When you enter siege mode, you cloak, and your next basic attack deals 100% extra damage. So level 20, if you get this off, you're going to be doing, instead of about 300 damage, you're going to do almost 600, right? And then you're going to get a 25% splash off of that. So ambush, if you want to go more of a siege focused build, you could do that. But this style, we're not going to be focused on the sieging at all. So we're going to run with advanced artillery on level 1. Level 4, as I hinted at earlier, we are taking Maelstrom shells to increase the standard basic attack range by 20%. It goes from 5.5 to 6.5, just like Raynor with the advanced optics. This is very, just basically the same thing that he gets. You could double the knockback here. You can take some healing with Vampiric Assault, where your basic attacks heal for 15%. And your focused attack gives you every 10 seconds. Your next basic attack deals 50% additional damage, with basic attacks reducing that duration of 10 seconds. So, with him having high damage on his auto attacks, or her rather, having high damage on her auto attacks, just similar to Zeratul, you could definitely take this if you wanted. You could do the knockback, but we're doing the Maelstrom shells because Hammer is someone you have to be very positionally safe with, and the idea is to give you that extra range to engage from farther away. And then you're getting, remember, that long-range damage bonus. So we really don't want to get up and close and personal. We have to be very positionally safe and sound with Hammer. Then you've got the level 7 talents, and the most common one here that we'll take is First Aid. You activate, you heal 35% of max health over 6 seconds. You've got Hyper Cooling Engines, which reduces the cooldown. He has a special mount that we did not talk about yet. Let's actually cover that real quick. So, oops, wrong spreadsheet here. So his mount is called Thrusters, and it increases the move speed by 60% for 4 seconds, and then it has a long cooldown, now I believe of 30 seconds. So this would reduce it by a third, by 10 seconds. So basically, and they're always active at the altar, so if you ever go back to the Hall of Storm, then you can, you'll have these thrusters activated as soon as you leave. It kind of gives you a boost out the gate without actually having to activate them yourself. This is kind of for a mobility based. If you're playing on a larger map, maybe some kind of viability there where you have to be very mobile. I don't recommend it though in most cases. The other one is slowing mines, so your spider mine's now slow. Instead of by 25%, it's by 40%, and instead of for 1.5, it's for 2 seconds. So that's a bit extra slow. I guess if you never needed First Aid, I would probably take slowing mines, but I just feel like First Aid is such a good choice. Remember, you're going to have 4,000 hit points at level 20, so you get a third of that back, which is just about just over 1,300. At level 10, as I said, Napalm Strike, we'll go with that one. And then level 13. This is where it's an interesting choice here. Remember, we're not building siege mode. We're actually most likely going to be going with bullhead mines. Spider mines knocks targets back a short distance. And this is really, really good. Remember how I talked about peel with the W with your Concussive Blast? Now you have bullhead mines to peel for you. You place them down, and an enemy comes into range, they get knocked back. Now, it's not a huge knockback. It's not the same as the W. It's slightly smaller, but remember, you have 3 mines, and each mine knocks back, so you can chain them. If they hit successively on the same target, that even minions will get knocked back, but anyone would get knocked back 3 times, for example. Now, the other one I've seen is the barricade, where your W doesn't just knock back, it then creates a block of debris there that you can't traverse, so it's kind of like a wall that you create for 4 seconds. First strike is if you haven't been damaged for 5 seconds, you deal 25% more damage. And then you've got the standard giant killer here, which gives you an extra bonus onto your auto attacks based off of the enemy's hit points. But we're using the bullhead mines here for the team fights, for that peeling. And these can stack up, because at level 20, where you're going to see it, well, here at level 16, we're going to take minefield, which increases the number of mines by 2. So you're going to have 5 mines. At level 20, that's going to be 1,050 damage. If all 5 mines hit, that is almost a third of your own health pool. And a lot of people, it's going to be well over a third on some of the squishier, the assassins. On the tanks, it's maybe a sixth, like a 6,000 hit point, like a Diablo. It's only about a sixth of their health pool. But it's a ton, and you get 5 knockbacks, and you can place these every 14 seconds. They last for 35, so you can have like 15 of these out there at once. You see some funny videos sometimes where the guy just gets hit by 15 mines and dies instantly. It's pretty funny. The old go-to that you used to see a lot was hover siege, where you can move at 50% while in siege mode. Now this used to be available on level 7, and they switched, I believe, with slowing mines is what happened, and so that was a big nerf to hammer. Graduating range was also another common one. While you're in siege mode, your standard basic attack range increased by 20% every 3 seconds up to 100%. So you're going to have a huge, if you're in siege mode for 15 seconds, your range is going to be tripled, which is insane. And so, if you're going a siege focused build, maybe they're viable. If you have like some kind of CC, a lot of CC on your team, you could maybe make a case for executioner. We don't really, with the hit points and the first aid, aren't going to need stone skin here for that shields, that 30% shields. And so we're going to, the build, the most common thing is you're stacking bullhead mines with minefield to give you that extra knockback and zoning potential. And level 20, as we talked about, is going to be resurgence. No surprise there. If you do the BFG on level 10, you could take orbital here. I would recommend taking orbital, but again, having to lose resurgence and giving up napalm strike for BFG is just not a common thing to do. And that's why, you don't really need the extra range and damage. You want to take that resurgence. Even though it was nerfed, it's now a 3-minute cooldown instead of 2 minutes. We're still going to end up taking this. And if you're really far ahead, it's not, you're not worried about dying for some reason, take the heroic upgrade, take the advanced lava strike. Sure, try it out. It does 50% more damage on impact, and its range is increased. The range on it will be insane. So that's the basic build for you. Advanced artillery, maelstrom shells, first aid, napalm, bullhead mines, minefield, and then resurgence of the storm. That's the basic build with some variations based on what you see. I'm trying to think of the big one. You could get away with slowing mines if you don't need first aid for some reason, but in like a high level match, you're going to need first aid most likely. And then if for some reason you don't need all this self peel for some reason, you could take something to increase your damage. I would maybe executioner if you have the right team comp for it, or a giant killer here instead of the bullhead. But ideally you're going to go with bullhead and minefield. And as I said, resurgence, unless you're just hands down winning the game and you're not worried about them having a late game team comp that can come back. Alright guys, so that's part 1. Thanks for watching. We're going to go ahead and break down and get into the game for part 2 and show off hammer a little bit in an actual versus match.